All right, so this week we've been talking about ratios and what they are, and today we're going to talk about how you can identify and write equivalent ratios. So we're going to figure out what is an equivalent ratio and why does it matter if two ratios are equivalent. So to start off, let's decide what is an equivalent ratio. So equivalent ratio, notice it has the word ratio. We talked about what a ratio was yesterday. It has the word equivalent, and we've talked about and seen this word equivalent. Equivalent means equal, right? So two equivalent ratios have the same relationship. So equivalent ratios are two or more ratios that describe the same relationship. Now let me give you an example of that. So in the winter, I like to drink hot cocoa. So what I do is in each cup, 1 cup, I have 3 tablespoons of cocoa. So 1 cup of water to 3 tablespoons cocoa. Okay. Now, that's what I do when I'm having the cocoa all by myself. But maybe my husband wants some hot cocoa too, right? So now all of a sudden I have 2 cups of water. I have my cup and my husband's cup. 2 cups of water. How much hot cocoa should I use, like cocoa powder should I use, in order to get the same consistency or the same taste of hot cocoa in both? So my new ratio is 2 cups of water to 6 tablespoons of cocoa, because each of our cocoa cups have 3 tablespoons. So this one's 3 tablespoons and this one's 3 tablespoons, which makes a total of 6 tablespoons. These are equivalent ratios. Because they represent the same relationship. Every cup of water gets 3 tablespoons of cocoa. Now, if I were to make a big old pitcher of cocoa and it had 8 cups water in it, H2O, 8 cups, how much cocoa am I going to have in there? So a good idea would be to pause this right now and to think about it. How much cocoa powder should I use for 8 cups of water in order to have the same consistency? 8 cups of water to, well, if every single cup has 3 tablespoons of cocoa, then I take that 3 and I multiply it by 8, and I've got 24 tablespoons of cocoa. These are examples of equivalent ratios. All 3 of these are equivalent ratios. Okay, so equivalent ratios are things that we use in the real world to create mixtures that are equal, so that everybody gets a fair share, and also so that it can be split perfectly. So some places where we see equivalent ratios. I'm going to have you pause the video and think about this and brainstorm and maybe share in the chat. But I'm going to start it off. Hot cocoa is one of the places where we can use equivalent ratios. Hot cocoa. So making hot cocoa. Where else might you use an equivalent ratio? Take a second, pause this. Okay, hopefully you're back. Well, some other ideas that I came up with was cooking. Cooking is some place that we use equivalent ratios. When you're making drinks for parties, like Arnold Palmer's, which are basically lemonade and hot tea or iced tea. When you're making Shirley Temples, which are like Coca-Cola and cherry juice. So drinks. Okay. When else do we use equivalent ratios? Another one is gift baskets. Gift baskets. Because you want to make sure that you have the right amount of everything to give everybody an equal amount of each piece. So like, for example, everybody gets the same amount of chocolates, everybody gets the same amount of toys, etc. All of these are really great ideas of when we use equivalent ratios. And you probably came up with a few more. I added them to my notes. You should add them to yours. So we are talking about equivalent ratios because we will use them in the future to make sure that we have proportional amounts or similar amounts in each grouping, okay?